Yo, what's up guys, it's Danny here, and today's video is going to be about how lust is ruining your life. Now, this video is catered towards men because I myself am a guy, and there's less dudes that are talking about this on social media, on YouTube, on any social media platforms. Like, there's less people that are talking about this. I don't know. I think that's just me. Maybe there are people that are talking about this, but it's just become a stigma, I think. I think that's the perfect word to describe it. There's a lot of stigma and judgment in talking about your problems, especially in mental health, and it has become a little bit easier to talk about, but I wouldn't say it's perfectly okay for you to talk about your mental health, especially if you're talking to a stranger or a person or acquaintance at your workplace. You shouldn't talk to about it in your workplace, to be honest. I speak that from my personal experience, but hey, you are free to do whatever you want. Also, this video is not a therapy session. It's more of a therapeutic discussion about, how to overcome lust, or what lust is and why lust is ruining your life. So as a man, I think lust is ruining your life is mostly because of point one, that lust makes you feel lonely. To define what lust is, it focuses on the physical craving or idealized fantasy rather than a real human connection. So you're not dating this person for, their personality or their complete whole person, rather than you're just dating them because of their body, right? And so I know it sounds a little bit dark in a way for a guy to think about, but it's sometimes most likely true for some, and again, to really control that is by really be patient with yourself. Like, okay, I have some sort of mind that's sort of unconscious thought that's controlling me to think this way, and so I need to really think clearly and logically that, lust has taken over me, and that I need to be patient with myself. I gotta be okay with okay, I gotta think about this particularly and just make it go away. You have to be patient with your feelings. Okay, you can accept the feelings, right? You have to say, okay, you have to acknowledge it, not accept it. Accepting and acknowledging are different. So you have to acknowledge your feelings, say okay, I'm feeling a little bit lustful, but I will wait for 10 seconds and eventually it'll go away. And that's where you're going to be objectively thinking about the person that you're dating and be like, okay, so this person has, is introverted or extroverted, whatever they are, and they are very conscientiousness. They're high in conscientiousness, and they are very disciplined in what they're doing. And that's where, lust becomes easier to control, because you're acknowledging yourself, your feelings. Okay, I'm lustful right at this point in time, so I'm just going to wait for a bit. Be patient. So again, if you don't become patient with yourself and acknowledge your thoughts about lust, lust will ruin you, So if you're, going to the private rooms and doing your thing, gooning, dude, it's bad for you, because you're basically isolating yourself and talking to nobody, and you're spending hours just probably, gooning and doing all those deplorable acts that you shouldn't be doing. And also you're devaluing your purpose in life. So I think it's a bad way to do, especially if you're making it become a habit. So I think you should probably not structure your life like that. Number two, that lust makes you feel ashamed. I think for the most part, many men feel the same way. They feel shameful for doing it, right? There's a lot of guilt and, disdain for doing it. And it's mostly because, there's a lot of things that there's better things that we should be doing, basically. So we could have been studying, we could have been working, we could have been working out, being fit, studying, reading. There's a lot of things you could have been doing instead of just gooning, right? So hey, that rhymes. But yeah, you gotta understand that it makes you feel shameful of doing it, and it's mostly because there's no satisfaction in doing it, because once you become adapted to it, so there's this thing called hedonic adaptation, and it's mostly because we're psychologically resilient to things that we're novel with. Like, for example, playing video games, that becomes novel. And so when the games become basic, every time we play it each and every single day, we become more tolerant to it. And so we need to find something that is, extreme. So we go for the ones that are more addictive, like the 3D games, the role-playing games. And so that becomes much of a difficult problem that we face. So if you're dealing with lust, right, you're going to become tolerant. You're going to become adapted to the tolerancy that you see on the screen, but then you said, oh, I need more, and then it leads to a harmful action that you could cause for yourself, CP. Again, if you guys don't know what that is, for example, Jeffrey Epstein, that guy had a lot of issues and he was doing some heinous acts. So I think, that should probably be a reminder that lust is not good for you. Lust is going to damage your life, your personality, your soul, and the things that you stand for, like your standards. And my third point is that lust can damage your social life. There's a reason why a lot of marriages ended because of infidelity, cheating, lack of trust, lack of communication, and a lack of responsibility on both parties, and that leads to disdain and hatred and hate towards the other person. So to really have a good life is to control your lust, control what you think about a particular person, especially if you're in a committed relationship. Like for me, I think for the most part, if I really want to have a chance in having a long-term sustained relationship, I need to focus on the qualities of the partner that I have. I need to be grateful that yes, this is my girlfriend, and we've done some things in the past, and there's could have been things in my mind that could have been better. So again, you have to really think and check yourself and reflect, like, hey, lust can damage my reputation, my life, my friends, my family, and you have to stop prioritizing over self-centered gratification over one's body, and you need to focus on the person's your partner's genuine connection, emotional connection, and their intellectual intimacy. You have to focus on those particular things, and I think that's the reason why most marriages and relationships fail, because they lack communication, trust, and discipline and responsibility. And my last point is that lust may lead us to harmful actions. Like, for example, again, famous celebrities, like not celebrities, but leaders like Bill Clinton. He's like the 42nd president, and he had an alleged affair with his wife, and at the time he was going out with his female White House intern, Kalinsky, or I don't remember, but it was like a long time ago. I remember that particularly in my history class, and man, it was such a good affair that I wasn't expecting, and then he got impeached, I think. And so that leads to, again, to my third point previously, that lust can damage your social life, your reputation. If people see that you have lustful intentions towards a woman or a guy or a man, then obviously people are going to judge you and hate you, and it's valid for a reason, because lust has damaged people's trust, and trust is one thing that we all want. We want loyalty, we want people to be part of our lives. So yeah, that's part of it. So if you can't control your lust, that also leads to like predatory actions, like notorious predator Jeffrey Epstein. Again, sorry to talk to you guys about it, but that guy was very bad. He was very evil. So if you guys don't know Jeffrey Epstein, he's like a child predator. And yeah, there's a lot of corruption in our lives that we don't see in our lives. So that's where we have to see that lust is a corruption in our mind. We have to associate that lust is evil. There's a reason why lust is a sin for most Christians and Catholics. And you might be wondering, what are the solutions and ways to overcome lust? Well, to overcome lust, you must become stoic. So I'm just kidding. But the first solutions that I think will impact or reduce your thoughts of lust is to notice your urge without fighting it. There's actually scientific research that supports that if you acknowledge your feelings of that time and just wait for a second and just realizing what you feel at that time, don't accept it. Like, don't say, okay, yeah, I'm just gonna pull up the hub and just watch it like unreservedly. Like, don't do that. Just notice the feelings, just don't walk away from them. It's natural to feel that way. It's just, you just gotta acknowledge it, be patient, wait for a minute, and eventually it'll be gone. And then again, you have to delay the action. You have to delay it for like 10 to 15 minutes. And just realizing that lust is a thought. You can see it, and that's something that you have to perceive it differently. You have to say, okay, I'm not going to do that. The second one is to exercise when the urges are the strongest. There's research, again, it's from research, that if you exercise physically, then the lust will eventually go away. It's because you're exercising, you're doing some sort of exercise that is out of focus, out of mind when you're dealing with lust. A third one is to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep. You know, to really become healthy, to really have a good mind, a psychological resilient mind, you have to sleep consistently. You have to sleep for 7 to 9 hours of sleep. And it's mostly because if you have lack of sleep, then you won't be able to really be mindful of what you're thinking. And sleep is important for our mood stability, you know, so you don't become sad, you don't become depressed, you know. And there's a reason why having 6 hours or no 4 hours of sleep, there's a reason why, you know, most people are depressed for having 4 hours of sleep, because they're stressed on, you know, being awake, you know. So yeah, the fourth point is to really remove the triggers. Like, you have to understand the triggers. Like, if you're seeing social media accounts that are dealing with, you know, the hub, or, you know, explicit images, or is it OF sites or whatever, just remove it from your site. Like, actually remove it from your site. Like, it's easier than said and done, but you have to do it for yourself. You have to put yourself accountable for what you do, and the things that you consume is ultimately going to become who you are as a person. And lastly, point 5 is to really redirect your attention towards meaningful goals. Like, you have to realize that you have more purpose in life rather than watching the hub. Like, think about it. You could have gone out and just talked to a girl, and randomly, eventually, you know, you find the one. And I know finding a girlfriend is not easy, especially for me. I'm still, you know, figuring out my life in the sense that I need to become independent and also dependent too, because I need to focus on, you know, my social connections and people. But you have to focus on your goals, the end goals of your life. But yeah, that was a short discussion. I just wanted to bring this out in case anyone who's struggling with lust. But I appreciate the support you guys gave me on the last video. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.